welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. This time for Monday, the 21st of August. Today, going to do a short review of yesterday's game, having had a bit extra time to reflect and think and review the highlights and the game. Plus, going to have a look at the player currently on Celtic's radar. It is suggested, a chap called Mathias Kvistgaarden, player for Brøndby. Also a little bit of transfer news, gossip stories bubbling under for Celtic over the last 12 to 24 hours. So obviously yesterday's result, rather disappointing result, a very disappointing performance. Having had a look at a lot of the Celtic fan sites on the internet and YouTube, a lot of people laying the blame at the feet of the players, some at Brendan Rodgers, quite a lot of people criticising the board for lack of enthusiasm in the transfer market, and a lot of people laying the blame at all three places. Some people even suggesting we should be sacking Brendan Rodgers, which I think obviously is very, very, very premature. Having been a Celtic supporter for over 50 years, there have been plenty of days like this, unfortunately, over those 50 years, particularly in the days where we had Tony Mowbray, Lou Macari, Liam Brady, John Barnes as a manager. But there were some sad days and dark days, obviously, also under our great recent managers, Martin O'Neill and Postecoglou, Brendan Rodgers in his first spell, and the good times with Gordon Strachan in his spell as our manager. And even the great Jock Stein had some disappointing results and disappointing weeks in his great spell with the Lisbon Lions leading into the College Street Kids, Celtic, up to the mid-70s. So, think premature calling for people's heads, think premature for laying the blame at the board for lack of incoming transfers. I think Celtic, due to the fact that we lack the massive millions and billions of money that a lot of the other big European teams have, we can't compete in the transfer market or the wage budgets such as the English Premier League, the top leagues in Germany, France, Spain, Italy, etc. can offer players. So we do tend to need to look for players from other transfer markets, fit them within our transfer budget and also our wage budget, and quite often look to sell that player on, as has worked very well with players such as Frimpong, Van Dijk, Edward, etc., etc. So what I think personally is I think the players are struggling to adapt to Brendan Rodgers' style. He was talking about basically adopting Ange Postecoglou's style with a few tweaks. It does feel, however, we're not playing with the same speed, urgency. Doesn't look like we've got the same energy, stamina, endurance for a game. We're not finishing off halves, starting off halves, finishing off halves well. And I think yesterday's performance was a microcosm of how things have been under Brendan Rodgers. I think the performance against Ross County was fairly average, but we did score the goals and we did win in the end, albeit 4-2. I think the performance against Aberdeen was better with the 3-1 win, especially in the 30 minutes or so where Rio Hatate was on in the second half of the Aberdeen match. Yesterday, I don't think any players played at all well. Yang and Haksabanovic did show quite a bit of energy and ability to break into the box and down the wing, which had been absent with Maeda and Abada out wide. There didn't seem to be much in the way of connection between defence, midfield, and attack. We struggled to get the ball out wide. Ralston and Taylor don't seem to be playing their inverted fullbacks role anymore. They don't seem to be breaking into midfield. They don't seem to be getting down into the opposition box, the opposition byline, to cut balls back across to the midfielders and the strikers. I thought this was Maeda's worst game of the season. Actually, probably the worst game of his career at Celtic, I thought. He looked rather clueless, looked like he wasn't sure what he was supposed to be doing, didn't interlink with the midfield, didn't really get forward to support Kyogo. All in all, rather a disappointing performance by him, although I think very few players came out the game with credit, apart from probably Nawrocki and Lagerbielke, who showed quite a good understanding together. Question marks as to whether the goal was their fault or Hart's fault. I think Hart didn't really organise his defence as well, and so that's why there was confusion. They let Watkins in at the back post. A game also where there were one or two VAR controversies, as often is the case with VAR. Extremely close offside goal scored by Kilmarnock, given as onside, although it did look like Watkins was very slightly ahead with his shoulder and his knee ahead of the last Celtic defender. However, it was given. Was surprised that Armstrong's challenge on Greg Taylor, which left Greg Taylor needing treatment on the sideline and a head injury assessment, which of course took him out of the game at the time where Kilmarnock scored their goal. I was surprised that wasn't looked again by VAR and the referee, and of course the second time Haksabanovic went down in the box. Certainly new video footage and still frames are suggesting that there was contact of the Kilmarnock player on Haksabanovic, which with no contact on the ball, and so could well have been given as a penalty, and was rather surprised again that the VAR official didn't refer it back for Muir to look at again. However, having said all that, Kilmarnock very much outplayed, tactics, were outcoached by Kilmarnock. All their players were up for it. All their players played with energy, a lot of aggression, played from start to finish, and snuffed out Celtic's ability to get through the middle, round the sides, managed to slow Celtic's play down a lot with knocking the ball away, blocking quick free kicks, quite a lot of, inverted commas, clever time wasting and frustration tactics. However, this is something Celtic usually cope well with. We find a way in the end to win, but yesterday the players didn't. Callum McGregor and Brendan Rodgers both were talking in their post-match interviews as this is a wake-up call, a kick up the backside, and I very much think that Celtic will come again next week against St Johnstone with a confident performance and restarting the time under Brendan Rodgers. I hope, however, over the course of this week, there's a lot of hard work done on the training pitch at Lennoxtown, which of course will help the newer players like Nawrocki, Lagerbielke, Home, to get better used to their teammates, as I thought there was quite a disconnect between the new players and the older players, and even the pre-existing players like McGregor, O'Reilly, Ralston, Taylor, Kyogo, Maeda, Abada. They didn't seem to really link in with each other or with their new teammates. Going forward, I think Celtic do need to look at replacing Joe Hart. Um, I think a lot of Celtic fans would put that as a priority, although Brendan Rodgers seems happy to stay with Joe Hart for the meantime. I think we do very much need to have an upgrade at left back, and do hope Celtic pursue Quinton Merlin, who is rated around £7 to £8 million coming from FC Nantes in Ligue 1 in France, and hope in the next week or two we do get Alistair Johnston back on the right side of defence, as I think he will shore up the defence and prove much more of a threat going into midfield and into the final third also. And we'd be very hopeful he's going to be back for the Rangers match in a couple of weeks' time. The other player, other area that's most likely needing some form of improvement is an additional striker to go with Kyogo and O. It doesn't look like the experiment of using Maeda through the middle is working. And when he did seem to switch into the middle at the end of the game against Kilmarnock, Celtic looked rather confused. Haksabanovic wasn't very clear what his role was, although I thought he did show a lot of good touches. Kyogo seemed to drop off into midfield. Again, I can't see the sense of dropping Kyogo off and putting Maeda through the middle. Whether they can work together, I'm not so sure. I think O and Kyogo could certainly work together as a partnership. And the new player on the radar for Celtic is the under-21 Danish international Mathias Kvistgaarden, who has 4 under-21 goals for Denmark in his 9 appearances, and scored 10 goals in the Danish Super League last season for Brøndby. Having had a look at his highlights reel, which I will put into the community section, video section of the channel, and I'll also leave a link for it in the description box for this video. He looks an excellent player, a lot of pace, a lot of strength, and even though he's only 5'7", 5'8", he seems very able to sustain and fight off challenges, break through defences, good in the air, can shoot with right and left foot. He is reminiscent of a Henrik Larsson, and while I'm not saying he is Henrik Larsson Mark II, I think he has a lot of the traits that Henrik Larsson brought with great effect to Celtic in the Martin O'Neill years. I think he very much would be a player that Celtic could look to sign. He's available reportedly at £3 million, and is keen to move away from the Danish league to a larger European league and to expand more into Champions League football. And so I would be very happy if Celtic could pursue signing Kvistgaarden and Merlin over the next couple of weeks, as well as bringing in a goalkeeper to replace Joe Hart. Kvistgaarden, I think, could work well with O, and could work well with Kyogo. He does appear better able to hold up the play, allowing players such as O or Kyogo or the midfielders to play off him and come on into the box. And so I think he would be a good option. And we'll see if Celtic do pursue that, as is being suggested. A couple of other stories being put forward. Possibility of Paddy Roberts, who of course did very well on loan from Man City in Brendan Rodgers' first time as Celtic manager. He had 2 years at Celtic on loan. He seems to have now drifted away from club to club, however has performed very well in the last 18 months for Sunderland, helping them to promotion, and has started the season well with Sunderland, and would also be available for £3 million. He, of course, would fit in nicely into Celtic's team. He's fully aware of the way that Brendan Rodgers manages and coaches, and is also fully able to fit in with many teammates who are still there from his first time at Celtic, and also he is fully aware of all the pressures and stresses and atmosphere of being a Celtic player, and so might well adapt and fit in much quicker than bringing in a player new to Celtic and new to the odd idiosyncrasies of Scottish football and the rivalries between us and our big rival, and with all the other clubs and how they play against us. There has been talk of signing Kelleher, the Liverpool goalkeeper. However, I cannot see in a million years Liverpool letting him leave. They need a good, high quality backup in case Alisson, their goalkeeper, gets injured or suspended. And so I cannot see him leaving there in a million years. The signing of Livakovic is reportedly yet again about to go through from Zagreb to Fenerbahce, and so he appears to be off the radar. And so I think Celtic should find a goalkeeper where they can. Mention of Kieran Tierney coming back, but again, a transfer fee of 20 to 30 million is way outside any Scottish team's budget and way outside of Celtic's budget. As much as we'd like to be able to shop with that kind of transfer market, I think we have to be realistic and realise that we're looking at the £10 million barrier as being the upper limit, with an accompanying salary level to go with that, which is why I think Podence and Fraser are not options. Interesting news also coming out of Saudi Arabia, where it would appear that Jota is already out of the plans and first team framework from Al Ittihad, and his manager Nuno Espirito Santo appears to be keen to move him on. There has been mention of possible loan to one of the other Saudi League teams, but if there was any possibility of us getting Jota back on loan for a season, I think we should jump at it and take it as quickly as possible before they change their minds. There are no other real transfer stories going through at the moment, although with Celtic, you never know. I, as I said, have popped the link for the Mathias Kvistgaarden video highlight reel into the description, and we'll also pop it into the community channel part of the channel. Please like and subscribe. Do try and have a go at the trivia question as well, also in the community section of the channel. And if you are enjoying these videos, again, please comment. I'm happy to read any comments, preferably constructive and helpful and positive. And there have been a few very interesting, very helpful comments which have helped me slightly adapt the way that I'm doing these and explain a few things that are the way I presenting, and the way that maybe I phrase certain things, which isn't necessarily always the same as some of the much younger YouTube Celtic fan channels. I'll leave things at that stage there, and speak again to you tomorrow. Goodbye and hail, hail.